Jill Valentine was born in 1974 and during her early life was part of the United States Army Delta Force training program. After this, she was recruited by Albert Wesker to join the STARS Alpha team in 1998, and Jill took part in the infamous mansion incident and was one of few survivors along with fellow STARS members Chris Redfield, Barry Burton, and Rebecca Chambers. 2 months later, Jill was stationed in Raccoon City when a T-virus outbreak occurred, and during the Raccoon City incident, Jill would be hunted down by an experimental BOW known as Nemesis. Jill Valentine would survive her many encounters with Nemesis and along with a few other survivors managed to escape the city before its destruction. In 2003, Jill would team up once again with her longtime friend Chris Redfield, and together the two would travel to Russia and would destroy the last secret facility owned by Umbrella. After the fall of Umbrella, she, along with Chris and 9 other members, would create the BSAA, and over the next 3 years, the BSAA would operate across the world, taking down all of Umbrella's old rival companies. However, in 2006, Jill and Chris were investigating Oswald E. Spencer's residence, and there the two would encounter and engage their old STARS team leader, Albert Wesker. The two were easily defeated, but before Wesker could deliver the final killing blow to Chris, Jill would tackle Wesker through the window as the two would fall into a deep crevice. After the BSAA spent 3 months searching for Jill's body, she was declared dead on November 29, 2006. However, Jill had not died in the fall, but instead had been recovered by Albert Wesker and would be experimented on for 3 years to create the Ouroboros virus. In 2009, Jill's longtime partner Chris was on a mission with fellow BSAA agent Sheva to prevent an outbreak of the Ouroboros virus. During their mission, the two would encounter a now mind-controlled Jill Valentine. Jill would attack Chris and Sheva, but thanks to Jill's memories, this gave Chris and Sheva the opening they needed to remove the mind-controlling device off of Jill's chest. After Chris and Sheva moved on to stop Wesker, Jill would encounter fellow BSAA agent Josh, and together the two of them would reunite with Chris and Sheva, giving them a pair of RPGs, delivering the final killing blow to end Wesker's reign of terror once and for all. Ada Wong was born sometime in the year 1974. Her life before the year 1998 is shrouded in complete mystery. However, by 1998, Ada Wong was a corporate spy working for an unnamed competitor of the Umbrella Corporation and intended to do research on all sorts of biological weapons and specimens. She was also a trained assassin, and Ada's first official mission was to infiltrate the Arcanine laboratory and become romantically involved with the head researcher named John as a means to steal intelligence for her company. Afterwards, Ada was sent to recover a sample of the G virus created by William Birkin during the Raccoon City incident. It was during this incident that Ada would meet the rookie officer Leon S. Kennedy. The two would fight their way to the underground Umbrella laboratory facility. However, while exploring the laboratory, the two would encounter the Tyrant 00 class. Although Ada was successful in helping Leon defeat the creature, she suffered a fatal injury and supposedly died. However, Ada survived her injuries and with the help of Albert Wesker was able to escape Raccoon City before it was destroyed. Over the years, Ada Wong would have numerous encounters with Leon. In 2004, she would aid Leon during his mission to rescue the president's daughter Ashley Graham. In 2011, she would aid Leon once again during the Eastern Slav Republic incident, and would aid him once again in 2013 to take down Derek C. Simmons. The last we see of Ada takes place sometime after the fall of Neo Umbrella, and she is seen destroying a laboratory that once belonged to a genetic clone of hers named Carla. As she walks away, she receives a call from an employer offering her a new job, in which Ada gladly accepts. Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topics Gaming here to present my next Versus Series matchup. And for this particular matchup, we have ourselves a good old-fashioned Resident Evil rematch for this season. Though Ada Wong was able to squeeze out a victory over Jill Valentine during Season 1, this time she will be taking on Jill Valentine as she was presented in Resident Evil 5 while she was under the control of Albert Wesker. For this particular matchup, we will have this fight take place in 2009, around the same period that these events would have taken place. And for the most part, this breakdown will be using some information of these two ladies that I used in my prior scripts, since the remake of Resident Evil 3 really isn't going to affect anything about Jill Valentine and Resident Evil 5. And this breakdown is going to make it a bit easier for me to put together. So with that said, let us begin by first comparing these two ladies physically. By the time of Resident Evil 5, Jill Valentine was a 35-year-old human female standing 5'4". Jill has shown immense upper and lower body strength, showing that she was able to catch herself falling into a chasm with one hand and perform a muscle-up with little effort. She can fire multiple shots from high-powered weapons like magnums with one arm. Her agility and lower body strength is almost unrivaled as well, with her possessing the ability to do a front flip onto an enemy's shoulders before snapping their neck and diving away, or doing a back flip from a kneeing position when recovering from a double knee drop. Her reflexes and speed are immense as well, with her being able to disarm Barry in a fraction of a second, quickly dodging many attacks from BOWs in Resident Evil 3, and she was even able to jump off a car and transition into a horizontal wall run with a mini skirt and boots. After being recovered by Albert Wesker and experimented on for 3 years, Jill would be implanted with a device placed on her chest which would inject her with a chemical compound known as P30, which at the time was an experimental performance enhancer which would grant Jill superhuman levels of strength and speed, showing as he was able to lift a fully grown man with one arm and has been shown to be able to perform backflips so fast that she can dodge gunfire and being able to run up walls. Jill's durability was also immensely high. She's been thrown around by Nemesis, knocked on her ass by Wesker with superhuman strength, and has been able to get up each and every time. And she's even been able to power through dozens of physical strikes from various BOWs over the course of her life and combat career, and has recovered rather quickly. In my opinion, Jill Valentine is by far the toughest female protagonist character in Resident Evil franchise. During the events of Resident Evil 5, Ada Wong would have been a 35-year-old human female standing 5'6", and thanks to all of her training and combat experience, she was supremely athletic. She is among the most, if not most, agile of all the protagonists, featuring acrobatic capabilities, speed, and reflexes that far exceed many others, which enables her to perform various flips, rolls, cartwheels, and parkour maneuvers with extreme precision and efficiency. She features body strength that is on par with higher if not most other characters in the series. She's able to perform muscle ups with little to no effort and possesses incredible leg strength, which utilizes in combat and moves around the environment very well. She is also capable of various flips, kicks, grapples, submissions when fighting enemies, or jumps, rolls, handsprings, and pull-ups when climbing or traversing terrains. Although Ada is extremely fit, she has been shown on numerous occasions that she is not very durable, as she has been knocked out quite easily on multiple occasions and can be easily overpowered by physically stronger opponents. In my first matchup pitting these two ladies against each other, the edge for one of these ladies was rather close, but this time around there is no question that this much more enhanced version of Jill Valentine would completely outperform Ada Wong in absolutely every single physical department that you could think of. This is a woman who was able to overpower Chris Redfield, who I would say at the time was at his physical combative peak, having spent years bulking up in preparation for a future encounter with Wesker, and Jill took him down like he was nothing. Now, it's not to say that Ada would be completely helpless, as she has had a history of engaging super enhanced opponents from all sorts of various types before, but in her case she always needed the help of her equipment in order to make up for what she lacked in the physical sense against her opponents. Since equipment does not play a major factor in this department, there is no doubt that between these two in a head-to-head contest, Ada Wong would be facing a far more physically powerful woman than she has ever encountered before, and that is the kind of fight that she cannot win in a straight-up contest, and that is why I'm giving Jill Valentine the dominant edge in physical capabilities. While under the control of Albert Wesker, Jill's armament was kept to a minimum. Jill's only weapons were a pair of VZ-61 Scorpion submachine guns that had a fire rate of 850 rounds per minute and an effective firing range of up to 25 meters, and she could carry up to multiple magazine clips that all had about 20 rounds each. Due to the nature of how Jill holds these weapons with one hand, she was able to lay down a significant amount of fire upon her targets while being able to use these submachines with extreme accuracy. Now, the challenge about trying to analyze Ada's arsenal is that because this fight has to take place in 2009, we obviously cannot use a lot of the weapons and gear that she had in Resident Evil 6. But it's hard to even rely on a lot of the weapons that she had in Resident Evil 4 as well, as by the time this fight happens, 5 years would have passed, and I doubt that she would have held onto everything that she had in that game. Since this particular fight will have the combatants going cold, I will have to stick to what I believe Ada would normally carry on herself as a spy. But due to the nature of this fight, I believe that the closest arsenal Ada would have had would have been what she brought in the side game Assignment Ada in Resident Evil 4. Now, in Assignment Ada, she carries a fully modified Punisher handgun that has a semi-automatic firing function and can fire up to 20 shots at a time before needing to be reloaded. She also carries a modified TMP, which has a firing speed of 0.10 seconds and can fire up to 100 rounds before needing to be reloaded. And her final weapon is a semi-automatic sniper rifle that has a firing speed of 1.43 seconds and can fire up to 12 shots before needing to be reloaded. She also carries a small dagger pen which she can easily conceal, but it's not the best tool to use at close ranges. And being a cool spy means that Ada has a collection of gadgets that she will also be bringing. Ada's most iconic gadget is her grappling gun. Now, this grappling gun was given to her from Wesker and was used to actually help her escape Raccoon City, and since then, Ada never goes anywhere without it. Now, over the years, Ada has used this grappling gun in a variety of different ways, which include not only using it for her amazing mobility to zip her from one location to another, but she's also used the grappling gun in an offensive manner and has been shown to be able to knock enemies off their feet or tie them up with a wire. In short, Ada knows how to use her grappling gun just as well as someone like Batman can, and that's saying something. This department is pretty easy to call, so there's really not much to say about it. Not only does Ada carry more weapons and equipment in terms of quantity, she also carries a higher quality of weapons that Ada can use at close, medium, and long ranges, which would then give Ada more combative options in a straightforward offensive manner. The TMP alone outclasses and outperforms both of Jill's VZ-61 Scorpion submachine guns, and when you take into account all of her gadgets, Ada would just have a lot more combative options to use at her disposal, so there's just no doubt that Ada should get the edge in weapons and equipment. Being in the Delta Force program, Jill Valentine had learned to become extremely proficient with a variety of different firearms. Her aim is extremely accurate, evident as she was able to land a headshot on a MAJINI from 200 plus yards away from a moving helicopter. It is said that while she suffers from increased recoil due to not having as much strength as her partner CRES, due to her Delta Force training, her accuracy is unrivaled. Jill's hand-to-hand combat ability is impressive, with her body officially being described as small and muscular, and her fighting is said to be highly toned. She compensates with her relatively slight stature in comparison to her male counterparts with her immense strength and flexibility when fighting, favoring the use of kicks and grapples over her fists. She tends to use a lot of acrobatic moves in her attacks, with many of her melee attacks featuring flips and cartwheels. Her skills with a knife are also extremely proficient as well. Contrary to most characters, Jill favors a stabbing motion with her blade rather than a slashing motion, which features a smaller radius of attack but allows her to attack significantly faster than other characters, and thanks to the enhancements given to her by Wesker, Jill is now capable of applying all of her combative capabilities with a degree of ferocity, making her not just overwhelming, but far more dangerous and unpredictable. While under Wesker's control, Jill's tactical approach in battle was highly aggressive and based upon keeping her pressure on her opponents and forcing them to respond to her. Before I get too far ahead, there is one important element of Jill's tactical approach that I would like to bring up. 5 years ago, in my previous matchup using Control Jill against Claire Redfield, it was my belief that because Jill was under Wesker's control, that Jill's approach to combat would resemble that of a wild animal, and I was basing it strictly off of the boss fight that we had in the Resident Evil 5 game. Now, having had a few years to think it over again, I realized that when I came up with that result for that department, I forgot to mention one key factor, and while the final result of that fight wouldn't change, if I could go back and change the edge result for that department, I would. It is my belief that the performance we saw from Jill in that contest against CRES and Sheva is not what you would get in this kind of engagement, as there were a number of key factors that were in play. For starters, Wesker had just increased the amount of P30 chemicals that were injected into her body, therefore you were given a far more aggressive version of Jill than you would normally deal with. Next, she was fighting not only two highly trained combatants, but one of them was Claire Redfield, which caused Jill to suffer multiple mental breakdowns which left her exposed. So knowing how skilled Jill was as a combatant, I believe that Wesker would not have wanted to compromise Jill's skill set, and that the experiments performed on her were meant to take her already toned skill set and just make them far more aggressive and focused and flexible, which would have made Jill the perfect kind of servant to carry out his orders, and against anyone else other than Chris Redfield, Jill would have unquestionably been the one to dictate the pace of any fight. Ada Wong was trained to be a cunning spy and possessed great intelligence and skills. She does her best always to think ahead of her opponents, and in some cases even her allies. Being a highly trained assassin, Ada is immensely skilled in hand-to-hand combat. She is shown to engage highly trained opponents like Krauser, however she has been caught off guard, like when she got intercepted by Leon during his mission to rescue Ashley Graham in Resident Evil 4. Ada was also trained to use a variety of different weaponry, ranging from modern firearms, which included handguns, sniper rifles, and crossbows, to melee weapons such as knives. Despite her proficiency, Ada does seem to favor small armed weapons such as handguns and machine pistols, which she does wield with deadly proficiency and precision, able to strike down opponents from alarming distances. As a combatant, tactically, because she mainly operates as a spy, it is my belief that Ada is at her weakest when she is forced into a head-to-head engagement. This can be shown in her engagements against Tyrant, Sadler, and Simmons. This also plays into the notion that Ada is much stronger when she fights alone. It seems that every time Ada has gone out of her way to save someone, she ends up placing herself in danger, and it always seems to backfire on her. However, it's not to say that she is completely useless in this form of combat, as it is clear from her experience in serious different scenarios that she is more than capable of holding her own from time to time. Ada performs best as a combatant when she relies on her stealth tactics and her ability to set up a scenario and put her at an advantage without her opponent realizing it. An X factor also has to come to play when it comes to Ada's tactics when it comes to her resources and information. By having an up-to-date intel on the current situation, this would better prepare Ada for whatever situation she finds herself in. Right from the beginning, it is clear that when it comes to martial skills and combative tactical approaches, that Jill and Ada are completely opposite from each other. Jill is a very direct combatant, and Ada is a very indirect combatant. But interestingly enough, this kind of fight adds a number of key factors that were not presented in their first fight that will come into play this time around and have a major effect on how the fight will play out. One element that needs to be brought up is Ada's need for preparation, and while that would normally help her in just about any situation, this time it would actually work against Ada. All of the information that Ada would have on Jill would not take into account the enhancements and modifications that Wesker has added to Jill's skill set and tactical approaches. Jill's profile would state that she is a very balanced soldier focused on a very offensive but always remaining cautious in her approach in battle and relies on a push and pull kind of approach, as some would call it. But what Ada would encounter is a far more aggressive opponent that would certainly catch Ada off guard, and in most cases would not even allow Ada the time she needs to fall back and change up her tactical approach. Jill would keep constant pressure on Ada, and while Ada has had plenty of experience against aggression-based opponents before in the form of BOWs and even against Jack Krauser, the amount of focused aggression that Jill's offense would bring would be on a whole new level. This would force Ada to have to make things up on the fly, and should she make one mistake, then Ada would be going down. There is no question that when it comes to Jill's background as a soldier and an agent, and Ada's background that being of a spy, that this version of Jill has a much higher level of combative performance along with having far more combative experience, while the most Ada could do is simply get really lucky and stall for time. But eventually, when Jill finally pins Ada down or forces her into a corner, then Ada is going to be in some serious trouble. And it is for these reasons that I am granting Jill Valentine the edge in martial skills and as a battle tactician. This particular matchup is quite difficult to determine a winner for, as there are a number of ways that this fight can go in which I can easily see each combatant walking away the winner. Even with Ada having the disadvantage in the physical, martial, and tactical departments, if Ada can turn this fight into a straight-up shootout, then Ada certainly has enough combative options and experience to put down someone like Jill. But if Jill was able to use her superior physicality properties to the point where she could get right up to Ada, then Ada would be the one to go down. So the challenge is trying to figure out a good middle ground between the two outcomes. In my first match between Jill Valentine and Ada Wong took advantage of the environment, her equipment, and her knowledge on Jill's skill set and tactics, and the ability to change up her approach on the fly, the fight to such a degree that she was successful in getting the jump on Jill and successfully knock her out. But this time on an even playing field against an opponent who has been greatly improved upon, Ada unfortunately would be the one to go down this time. Even though the only combative advantage that Ada has working for her is her weapons and equipment, there's nothing about her combative history that doesn't say that she wouldn't be able to take down a far more aggressive version than Jill, and when you take into account that Jill will be wearing a mask, Ada is not even going to know who she's fighting. In the first fight, she knew who she was fighting, and therefore she took extra measures to make sure that she didn't go out and kill Jill. This time, however, because she does not even know who she's fighting, and because this upgraded version of Jill is not going to resemble the way that Jill Valentine would normally fight, Ada would have no reason to hold back and would be fully willing to kill her mysterious opponent. In my Claire Redfield vs. Control Jill matchup, I stated that while Claire has the training, experience, and equipment to kill Jill, she would be holding back to make sure that she didn't kill her, and that ultimately ended up backfiring on her. However, in a surprising twist, both Jill and Ada would be attempting to use opposite approaches to what their tactics were in the first fight. But once this version of Jill, who is not suffering from mental breakdowns because she's not fighting CRES or fighting against two opponents, realizes that she's outgunned, she would rely on her stealth and surprise attacks to get the jump on Ada, and all she would need is a single opening to finish Ada off quickly. Ada has always had the ability to rely on a head-to-head approach in combat, but this always seems to backfire on her at the worst possible times. When she went up against Sadler, though she believed that she had successfully taken him down, he was successful at catching her off guard and capturing her. In her fight against the Eastern Slav Republican president in Resident Evil Damnation, there is simply no doubt that in a straight-up fight that she was clearly the inferior fighter between the two. And when she would eventually attempt to fight off Simmons all by herself in a head-to-head contest, she was knocked out and needed help from Leon. Once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, and 3 times a pattern. As a spy in this fight, Ada would fall into once again trying to use this very bad habit of underestimating the situation, but this time, once the situation eventually falls out of favor for Ada, Leon will not be there to bail her out this time. I believe a fight like this would involve a scenario similar to that what we saw in Assignment Ada, where she is sent to recover a set of virus samples. And with Wesker still being a bit upset with Ada for betraying him, he would send Jill to recover those same virus samples. With Ada bringing far more firepower, once she realizes that someone else is there, she would attempt to engage him in a firefight against this mysterious opponent by using either her Punisher handgun or her TMP. Jill would fire back at Ada using her twin VC-61 Scorpion submachine guns, but this would be only to announce her presence and to force Ada to go into a defensive position, but not seriously try to hit her. Ada would fall into a defensive position, and at this point I see 2 things happening from this point on. Either Ada pulls out her sniper rifle and attempts to get a good shot at the target, but in the process she puts herself in a stationary position and reduces her range of sight, and since she is looking through her scope, she is not seeing the bigger area. And with Jill's superior physicality, she would manage to sneak up on Ada without being seen, and would immediately get the jump on her, and at that range, Ada would be disarmed and killed, probably with Jill breaking her neck. Or, if Ada felt that she needed to get out of her current location, she would attempt to reach a higher elevation with the use of her grappling gun, and while in mid-zip, Jill would once again use her superior physicality to attack and tackle Ada in mid-zip, which has never happened to her before, and turn this fight into an immediate close-range hand-to-hand fight, and once again, Ada would be the one to go down. I declare Jill Valentine, the manipulated puppet, the winner. I'd love to hear all of your guys' thoughts on this rematch video between these 2 popular leads of Resident Evil. Do you agree with me that Ada just wouldn't fare too well against this much more enhanced and dangerous version of Jill Valentine, or do you still believe that Ada would be able to somehow outsmart Jill once again and get another win over her? Share your thoughts with me and everyone else in the comments down below, and remember that this video is just my own personal opinion, so don't take it too personal if Ada happens to be one of your favorite Resident Evil characters. Like always, if you have enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep track of me in all my future Versus Series matchups and other video projects that I have planned for the rest of the year, and thank all of you guys for watching. And now, here's a quick little preview of my next Versus Series matchup that I already know is going to get many of you guys extremely excited. I'll catch you next time.